I set out on Sundays and I write down, what I'm trying to get done for the week. And what I was saying was, if you haven't ever read the book, The One Thing, would highly recommend you check that out. Especially if you're running a business, it's very helpful in kind of whittling things down to what the one thing you could do that would have the biggest effect. And if you can figure that out and accomplish that, and that's all you focus your time and energy on each day, you will make more progress doing that than anything else, right? So for me, content is a big deal. If I'm not on here, if I'm not creating content, answering good people's questions on a regular basis, if I'm not out here representing the firm well, um, things don't work right. So the majority of my time gets spent on content creation, leadership within the company, and making sure that we have the resources that all of our people need so that they can execute on what they are supposed to be doing. And if your CEO is not doing those things and their time is being spent on other stuff, they're not very effective. So again, hopefully you guys are off to a good start this week. Everything's rocking your way, and you're starting to knock out those big boulders for whatever you are trying to accomplish. So go ahead and hop into the chat. We've got a lot of people here with questions. I know many people are going to ask about Swift. So I am just going to go ahead and go through a few things on that. Because I know, again, it's a burning question for people. They're like, oh no, Swift is creating their own blockchain. They're not. Well, they are. They're going to leverage Lena or one of these other ones in order to be able to do the messaging. And, that's great. Messaging is definitely needed. But, if you need settlement, you're going to have something else. So if you're part of the Beyond Broke Mastermind, I share some things in there that I don't share publicly often, but I am going to read this one for you guys. This is a shareholders notice from Brad that he sent out earlier today. And on the Swift announcement, I'm going to read verbatim what he sent out to shareholders and other people that are on Ripple's cap table. He said, in other headlines, Swift announced it has built a prototype for a blockchain-based shared ledger to be added to its infrastructure stack, initially focusing on real-time 24/7 cross-border payments. I've received a number of questions this week about this and what it means for the industry and Ripple. Frankly, it made me realize I haven't shared enough recently about the thoughts I have around who we view as our core competitors. And perhaps I will spend some time on the competitive landscape in an upcoming note. I digress. It's true, in the early days, we did view Swift as a major competitor, but the reality is, in the time it's taken for them to announce a prototype, we've been building robust digital asset infrastructure, expanding on our payments product to custody, or from our payments product to custody, stablecoins, and development on the XRPL and more with recent acquisitions. Also, we've dug in to the Swift news, and it really seems more like a marketing play in the lead up to their annual conference, Sibos, rather than an actual meaningful product announcement. So there you go, from the CEO at Ripple. And you can take that with a grain of salt. He is the CEO at Ripple, so he has a certain agenda and belief in their product and solution over competitors in the market. So that's Brad Garlinghouse speaking. I'll say my piece. Again, prototype or 13-year track record with no downtime other than a couple pauses, and a bunch of other infrastructure that's already been scaled on top of it with multiple participants already using the network to be able to settle transactions. I'm pretty confident they're going to go with the latter. I'm pretty sure that they're going to have to work with what everybody else has already chosen rather than, trying to skimp things along and get things into, these institutions last minute here. Seems like I'm going to agree with Brad, probably more of a marketing play they obviously are looking at settlement technology for Swift. And well, if there's something that has legal clarity here in the US and also has enough liquidity in it, I think they might use that. So, you know, I'm excited with Lena being a messaging based software that they're using that's an EVM component or an EVM based chain. The EVM side chain on the XRPL is the great unlock. It allows for interoperability between smart contracts and EVM based solutions and settlement using XRP. And I think that, you know, JP Morgan and many others that have built EVM based infrastructure would like to leverage, you know, the cost and low latency of the XRPL. The throughput on the mainnet for the XRPL is limited to around 1500 TPS currently, but Bob Way holds a patent to a subnet for the XRPL. And I think that's the secret sauce that we've been looking for it to be able to scale to, you know, significantly higher numbers. Visa and Mastercard both need, you know, 30,000 TPS, and then you have other applications that are similar, right? So to be able to settle all of those transactions across all those counterparties, you'd need a really, really robust infrastructure that's not going to go down or have problems with that volume of payment, and is already integrated with all these, you know, different institutions. So excited to see, you know, when they might roll out a subnet, which is implicit or explicit on the on the XRPL. Don't know which it's going to be, but either one of those should suffice, according to Matt Hamilton and the conversations I've had with him in the past before he decided to be his usual self. And when you miss one word in a tweet, try to tear you down. I'm not about that. I'm trying to build people up, and I don't have time for negative people. So with that, we'll go ahead and hop into the chat here. We'll run down the questions that you guys have. And again, appreciate you taking time out on a Wednesday night to hang out with me. And again, if you want inside scoops from shareholder notices and other stuff, we do share that with the mastermind. We would love to have you in there. All you got to go do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you your first month there for $2 in the mastermind. We got Garrett. He says, have 1,000 XRP and $3,000 cash to add to the market. Would you say to throw it all in XRP, or say HBAR is better bang for your buck because it's 22 cents? Same PA for HBAR short term. HBAR is not going to have anywhere near the price appreciation that XRP is going to have in the short term, in my personal opinion. Okay, and this is probably a good time for the disclaimer here, right off the rip, because people are already asking about price predictions and other stuff. Anything I state here is not financial advice. Please do your own research. Please consult with professionals. Contact your financial advisor or CPA or lawyer before making any tax, legal, or financial decisions. Everything said here is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please be, you know, an adult and make your own decisions. And aside from that, anything I state are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group, nor are they the opinions of Digital Wealth Partners, which is our SEC registered RIA. So now that we got all the disclaimers out of the way, I can give you the real deal. I am super bullish on HBAR. It's probably in my top 3 digital assets that I think will do extremely well over the long term. The security and the speed at which Hashgraph settles stuff, and HBAR does have fixed fees when it comes to dollar denominations on the network, which makes it extremely scalable, especially as HBAR's value increases. I think it's a great solution for a lot of applications and dApps. I think the majority of dApps will be built on Hedera, but I think that's going to come later, personally. So the progression that I'm looking for is payments first, and then, you know, the adoption for a lot of the other use cases that many people are bullish on. And XRP is at the forefront of the payments component, and I believe will have the most significant appreciation. HBAR and Hedera do have a stablecoin studio that they've launched, and there are stablecoins being minted and issued on HBAR to be able to be transacted. So this is kind of like stocks. You could see a stock at $100 and you could see a stock at $2. The stock at $100, if it goes a 10x, it's still a 10x on your money. And the stock that's $2, you might be able to buy a bunch more of, but if it only goes to $4, you only doubled your money. You bought a lot more stocks, but you only doubled your money. Whereas the $100 stock, you 10x your money. So just because you can accumulate more of a certain asset does not mean is a better bang for your buck. You're going to look at what you think the price appreciation of that token will be. Back into that with some math. I would encourage you to figure out the total addressable market for whatever use case a token is trying to garner the market share of. Look at partnerships and the companies involved and who's developing on the network, and again, what's being tokenized, what asset class is being tokenized on the network, and then you can kind of back into some price appreciation. So that's the way I would do it. That's the way I've done it in the past. We have a whole video that's an hour long on the different types of financial markets and which blockchains have traction in each. And I give you, cost and benefit and a price prediction on those networks today in that video. I think I did that video about 4 months ago. And that's when I found Hash, which is it's now in the top 3 that I think will do extremely well. XRP, HBAR, and Hash. Hash is still relatively unknown. Full disclosure, I bought a couple grand of it. It's all I've got. It's the only thing I bought besides XRP in 3 years. It's Provenance's token. They've issued insurance on that chain, whole life policies and other insurance policies, and they're rolling up mortgages and creating mortgage-backed securities on that chain with Mike Cagney. Had him on the podcast. He was awesome. We've also talked to some other VCs that you guys would know if you're into XRP that have a significant allocation and token warrants for that. Again, I've got a small bag of Hash. It doesn't matter to me whether you buy it or not. Not suggesting that you even go buy it. I'm just suggesting that you may take a look at it if you like utility-based digital assets. The only places that you can buy it currently, and this is why it reminds me of like XDC when I bought that early on at 0.03 of a penny before it went to 9 cents. This is only 4 cents right now, and it's only listed on Figure Markets and on Oasis, or Osmosis, excuse me. So those are the only 2 exchanges that I've seen it on. There's not a whole lot of cold wallets that can hold it. Buyer beware. It could go to 0. And that kind of leads me to this other super chat that I missed last time about XRP. So they said they have 2 questions, and I will inevitably miss super chats tonight, and I apologize. We're only going to go for 2 hours here, and I'm going to try to get to as many as I can. But if I do miss them, please join the mastermind. Please DM me. I will get it to it. Or, we get DMs and we print them out, and I will read it here. This person asks, 2 questions. Do you have any doubts with XRP? Nope. Could it possibly go to 0? Nope. If you think the reverse carry trade will crash the market, is there any reason to be buying crypto other than XRP currently if it is indefinitely to lose value? I don't own any crypto besides XRP and the $2,000 worth of hash that I bought. So up to you. Again, not financial advice. Make your own choices. That is what you mentioned there is why I am positioned where I am. It's because I have a certain level of conviction that XRP is going to be going up while everything else is burning down. And I could be wrong about that. Again, I'm just some guy on the internet. I do, get to sit in rooms and have conversations with cool people. And that's also what's allowed me to be as confident as I am in certain things. But again, do your own research. I'm just one data point in the ocean of stuff that's going on out there. So with that, we'll go ahead and hop into the next super chat here. We got Jay Blaze 11. He says, legend. What's up, man? With the shutdown Will it interfere with the ETFs or the reverse carry trade? I hear it could be it could last 61 days. Thanks for everything. I accumulated more due to your lives. Again, kudos to you, my man. Not financial advice, but I'm excited for you and your family. Neither one of the things that you mentioned here would be affected by a government shutdown. Only the vote for the Clarity Act, which I did mention in a tweet recently, which sure would be interesting if the government shutdown pushed out the vote for the Clarity Act. And if something was needed in a liquidity crisis that happened to be a digital asset that could provide liquidity in a certain scenario, and there were no other assets with legal clarity here in the US, it would be like it was planned or something if XRP was the only asset because of a government shutdown and the Clarity Act not being passed. Man. So, yeah, that's what it would affect. It would affect the Clarity Act being passed. If the government is shut down, they're not voting on that. Congress is not voting, and it will delay the vote on that bill. And the only thing right now that has legal clarity in the US, aside from Bitcoin, that's not a security is, you guessed it, XRP. July 13th, 2023, the judge in the Ripple case gave that statement and clarity for XRP that XRP in and of itself is not a security in the eyes of the government here in the US. So would, make one think that there could be a situation where it's the only option to provide liquidity and save the day. We'll just have to see how that plays out. But yeah, the ETFs and the reverse carry trade are not affected by the government shutdown. We got DFW Mike, my man. Thank you for the super chat, dude. He says, you are the legend. Grok quoted you twice in my search today. You're probably just feeding it my stuff, man. That, it's not like Grok seeks me out. He says, my wife says hello to you and the tea lady. I will let my wife know. I hope the shutdown doesn't last a month. I may have to take a loan on my XRP. I need to start making money on the AUM. Thanks. Well, if the government shutdown does last a month, that's still okay. We have a solution coming to market in the very near future where we will have monthly playouts. Max has let me know that the reason that Grok is quoting him is because he is the master of the internet, which he is. Max Xavier, my business partner, is the master of the internet, and he's really good at SEO. And so that's why Grok is quoting me. Max is he is one of the smartest people I know. Angus says, can you speak on Swift's project? Lena, yep. We just went over that. It's an EVM-based product that's for its messaging only and not settlement. And it's actually synergistic and bullish for XRP because of the EVM sidechain, in my personal opinion. Wayne, what's up, Wayne? He said, did Captain Jake bobblehead ever get delivered? The stuff people send me is incredible. Would you look at that? That is crazy, my man. Thank you so much. He says, why is Coinbase allowing themselves to run so low on XRP? Don't exchanges buy and hold reserves? What happened? They or any other exchange hit zero in XRP could cause a supply shock. My man, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm pretty confident that it will be orchestrated when all this happens. They're going to need XRP themselves because I think, Tether might have some problems alongside everything else with the reverse carry trade, but that's yet to be seen. We got the Versatile, interesting name. They say, hello, Jake. Do you believe we'll see another rapid dip for XRP? Also, do you believe the digital ID in UK will have an impact on XRP's price? Well, you do have digital identity on the XRPL, and you now have credentials also live on the XRPL on the mainnet. Both of those amendments have been passed. And I'm not sure that digital identity will have an effect, but I will tell you this. When we went to Ripple Swell in Dubai in 2023, when Brad was up on stage, he made the comment that custody and digital identity are the bedrock of everything else that they're building. And until those two things are really in place, they would not be able to scale everything else that we're hoping for, because institutions aren't going to work with them or work with XRP until both those things are in place. So the identity component's a big thing. And now that we have all of those amendments passed on the XRPL, well, it's capable of it. And we have custody in place. Ripple, again, they're going to have the banking charter. They already have standard custody. They're working with BNY Mellon for treasury management of ROUSD. And, they've made the acquisition of Hidden Road, which is a prime broker. There's never been a non-bank that has owned a prime broker. So it gives them a lot of leverage when they're having that conversation. And I do think that there's a potential within the next 30 days that they get that banking license from the OCC, and everything that they've been working on with Hidden Road will hopefully go live. They, anytime you buy a financial firm in the US, there's a time where transfer has to take place and a lot of disclosures have to be made. And you have to refile a bunch of stuff or make amendments to things and put the new people on there. Broker dealers that way, RIAs are that way, and banks are that way as well. John over here on TikTok, good to see you, man. He says, this is an opportunity to stack and hodl. I believe XRP will pump massively. I'm with John. And John's had some really good other things go on for him. He's very successful. We got Chomp. He says, Jake the Snake, what's up, my man? How do you juggle live fam and fire content daily? Zen Master, Sleepless Cyborg, drop the secret, bro. We're out here trying to keep up. Other people, my man. It's not about how, it's about who. So every time I have been at a roadblock in my life, I do my best to provide other people value and create value for other people and generate opportunities. And if you can sell that to the right person and get them to partner up with you, whether that's an employee or a business partner or clients, all of those matter, right? But it's about who you partner up with, and they're going to have their expertise and domain and experience that they're going to be able to bring to the table. And you need a team. I have the best team in the world, in my opinion. The people that work for us, I'm seeing emails go right now. They hustle as hard as I do. We're all working 12, 14, 16-hour days. They're well compensated. I make sure of that. And I would rather overpay for good people and make sure that they feel like, they're well taken care of for the level of input that's really kind of required at this level. We're scaling very quickly. And if everybody's not operating on all cylinders, it's very difficult to pick up slack. We're adding headcount rapidly. I think we're over 35 people at this point. This time last year, we had 7. So that's a 5x in employees in 1 year. We've got some really good people on our team. So that would be what I would say. It's not, I'll walk you through the 4 different levels, the 4 different types of leverage. So I do these lives. They clip all the shorts out of these lives and then share those, right? And we have a team that does that. We have another team that works with us on long form content. They give me full scripts of stuff. I don't do well reading off of a script. You can tell here that I'm like, I say ums and ahs, and I have some pauses and have to think through things. But I think it's real, right? And I think people appreciate real versus this scripted reality where I sound like a bot and stare at the camera. Maybe I'm wrong. But we have really good people that we work with on that stuff, and they're able to help generate the content. And then Max is a machine, like I said before. If we didn't have Max Avery on our team, none of this exists. None of this happens. So shout out to him. Appreciate him for all that he does. But yeah, I don't get a whole lot of sleep. 6 hours is normally pretty good. We're up and at 'em. And now that we have the office in Dallas, we got an hour drive in the morning. We're listening to audiobooks and we're making it happen that way. Been slacking on my fitness because I got to drive into the office, but we do have a gym there at the office, a Lifetime Fitness that's above the garage. So that's cool. And occasionally I am able to make it over there at the end of the day. But it's only for a season, right? You cut hay while the sun's shining. When you have a shot, you swing as hard as you can, and that's what I'm here to do, and why we show up. And it never feels like work. I love every single day I wake up and I'm excited. Uh, Justin says, "Wake up, Uncle Danny." Got to get him late in the evening. So anyway, the only thing I could say is, find good people, pay them well, and inspire them to, what I've found is A players are going to be A players, and there has to be a vision so large for a corporation that their vision for their life fits into that. And if you have a small vision or there's ceilings, you're not going to attract A players. This person says the discount code didn't work. It's beyond broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month in the mastermind for $2. Speaking of which, we got Kent Gloria, Gloris, 1983. Interesting name. They say Jake-tastic. I'll take it. Thank you. Can you explain in detail why you think Tether will be deplatformed? Not deplatformed, but depegged. Especially since it's announced they were releasing a new stablecoin in the US. Thanks for all that you do, Mastermind for life. I love that. I don't think Tether's going away. I just think it's going to cause huge implications and a liquidity crisis for the rest of the crypto market. And the pivot to the new stablecoin with Bo Hines and Howard Lutnick and everybody involved on that front, I think gives them the power to allow USDT to depeg in the scenario where the reverse carry trade unwinds, which is going to happen. I'm confident that there's something on their balance sheet backing those tokens that will be destabilized during the reverse carry trade, and that's what will cause Tether to depeg potentially, and confidence to be lost. When confidence is lost in any banking instrument, whether it's a stable coin like Terra Luna or a bank itself, the snowball effect exacerbates that scenario. It may not even be that bad, but if one person yells fire in a theater and starts running for the door, people don't look for the fire. They just start running for the door. And that's the same scenario that plays out when, we had FTX. Binance said he felt like they were illiquid. And sure enough, there was a Ponzi scheme going on. And they didn't have the collateral. And they were able to shore things up for a very short period of time until there was so much withdrawal volume that they couldn't put on the front anymore. If you went to any bank right now and everybody at that bank or credit union tried to withdraw their money, it's not there. Doesn't happen. They ain't got it. It's all fractional reserve lending. Same thing exists in our banking system. The same thing people are mad about with these crypto exchanges. You are a creditor of the bank. They do not have your money. But there's confidence in banks, and they're FDIC insured. And we saw them step in for the regional banks just last year when SVB and Silvergate and many others, went under. They stepped in and made everybody whole. And so they've evoke this level of confidence that if that scenario plays out, you're okay. You're not going to lose your deposits. Now, at this point, the FDIC is for sure not got enough money to cover another large banking collapse. So we'll see what shakes out there. I personally don't keep a ton of money in the bank. That's just my personal thing, though. We got Mark M. He says, Sensei, can't wait for price appreciation so I can work with you. Today, I read that XRP Ledger rolled out the multi-purpose standard for real-world tokenization. Can you explain to everyone on the live how bullish this is? Appreciate you. Absolutely. So the amendment was voted on and passed over the 2-week period. No changes were made. It did go live today. So the multi-purpose token allows for smart contract capability for fungible assets. So stocks, as an example, you could issue common or preferred shares of a stock, and you might have voting rights with those shares. And you could build that into the multi-purpose token. So this allows for the tokenization of real world assets that require other rights or components that aren't standard across every fungible piece of that. Like you could exchange common share for preferred, they would trade at the same value, but the rights that come along with a preferred share are very different than those that come along with a common share. So there'll be other scenarios like this, but that's the main component that's super bullish for the XRPL and the multi-purpose token. Journey to the 6-pack. I need to get back on my grind and get my six. We're rocking the 4-pack. We need to get back to the 6-pack. He says, once XRP hits $10,000 and you decide to step down like David Schwartz. No way, my man. What hobbies will you dive into that you've always wanted to do? So I'll definitely go back to bodybuilding competitively. I haven't done that in 5 years, and I consistently like watch Keon and a lot of the other people that compete at the Olympia at a high level. And I'll be 35 next year, so I will be able to compete in Masters. I'd like to go back to that, and I think I played golf in high school. Did that. I didn't miss, but maybe like 30 days in 4 years playing around a golf. Played with Scotty Scheffler, played with Jordan Spieth here in Texas, both of them. Both of them kicked my butt. And that's why they're, both of them have been number one in the world. And I don't play golf anymore. But I think I might get into long drive. I'm watching these guys hit it like, over 400 and over 500 yards. I can do that. I've done it. So anyway, I think I might get into some of that when I have more time. Both of those things would be fun hobbies for me. But it'd be cool to be long drive champion. But that takes a lot of practice and time. And I've just got too much going on with the business to be able to allocate enough to it to actually, make it happen. We got Dennis. He says, it looks real for Japan, the reverse carry trade and the war at the same time. BlackRock, Vanguard, Van Eck willing to join in, driving XRP FOMO and price shock. You agree? XRP $50 plus. Yep, I'm fully on board, Dennis. We talked to Van Eck just the other day about their product that's now exchangeable with ROUSD for their money market. Very interesting. They're going to provide you a pretty much like a liquid staking token for their money market, where you're able to park your ROUSD in their money market, and they will give you a token on chain that represents the value there that you can then go do other stuff with. So yeah, I don't know what it'll trade at. It probably will trade at some type of premium because the returns you're getting on the money market. So it'd be interesting to see how all that works when it does. I broke that down on the webinar earlier this week. We talked about MXRP and FXRP and Doppler and not Avalanche, Axelar, and what they're doing to be able to generate returns on your XRP, and how we also generate returns on your XRP at Digital Wealth Partners, and why we are different than DeFi. We do not use any DeFi. There's no risk. There's no counterparty risk. There's no smart contract hit risk. The only risk is that our strategies underperform for a quarter, which, that's happened a few times in the history of the fund. It actually happened like the first month that we got going. They lost the first quarter, lost like 60 basis points. But I was okay with that, because if you start off, really crushing it, that's what people expect. And so, testing it to the downside the first quarter, I was okay with that. And this next quarter, we got payouts coming to all of our investors over there here in the next 14 days in October that have participated in the original funds with us. We currently have over $250 million worth of XRP being put to work at Digital Wealth Partners to generate returns for our clients. So if that sounds cool to you, If you want to be part of the largest, it's not a liquidity pool yet, but could potentially be a liquidity pool in the future. If you want to be, part of that community, you can just reach out. You need at least 100,000 XRP. You need, or at least 500,000 in total portfolio value, which can include your traditional assets. If you got like 20,000 XRP, so 60 grand over here, but you got 100 or 440,000 in your traditional portfolio, and you want to bring your assets into institutional custody at Anchorage and get access to all the stuff that we have, we can absolutely accommodate that. Please reach out to Digital Wealth Partners at digitalwealthpartners.net. We have lending, the returns, and we're about to roll out some other really cool products for anybody and everybody. And I really think you're going to like the counterparty that we're working with to be able to generate a CD type return on your XRP. We got Frank, my man. He says, hello, Mr. and Mrs. Tea Lady. Jake, do you think Ripple gets a banking license this year? I do. I think here in the next 30 to 60 days, my expectations sometime in November. Mike, what's going on, Mike? He says, hey, from Montreal, Canada. Very cool. Look, getting cold up there, Mike. Need to come on down to Dallas. It's still 90 degrees here during the day. He says, when my XRP appreciates in value at numbers you mentioned in your other videos, can I, as a Canadian, use your services to open up an LLC in Wyoming for safeguarding and all the good stuff? You have some other tax considerations there in Canada, Mike, my man. Unfortunately, Canada does not recognize limited liability companies. And therefore, they tax you at the corporate level and then again at the personal level. There is no pass-through taxation for Canadians using LLCs if you reside in Canada. So if you plan to move to the US, sure, we can work with you on that. But unfortunately, if you reside there in Canada, you are taxed in Canada. The tax code in Canada is residency-based. The tax code in the US is citizenship-based. So I would recommend that you reach out to Aaron Grinhaus once the time comes for you to work through the estate planning component of what you're doing for your digital assets. He's up there in Toronto, and he will help you sort through the best case scenario for you. He's very familiar with US tax law and Canadian tax law, and also can help you establish entities offshore, which many Canadians do in order to be able to benefit from certain jurisdictions and different tax laws outside of Canada. We've got eWest Easy. They say, my dad wants to know if he should transfer his 3,000 XRP off of Robinhood to Uphold. He also wants to put another 5K into XRP. Tell him that's smart. Laugh out loud. I would definitely get it off of Robinhood as fast as you can. They are limiting people's ability to withdraw multiple assets, not just XRP, on Robinhood. Yeah, I would highly recommend that. And then in addition to that, Uphold is a good spot. They're good people. I believe in their product and their solution, but they are not qualified custody. But they are a very reputable exchange. I do think that they could potentially go public in the not too distant future. We'll see if that ends up happening or not. And that would kind of solidify them in my mind. Coinbase and Gemini have now gone public, and I don't think they're going to go anywhere. It'd be interesting if they did. But you could buy, the additional 5K through your account there at Uphold. It's a little cumbersome. They make that kind of weird to do a transaction on their platform. But, it's a good spot to do it. We got Roberto. He says, am I the only one that can't get the music to Final Jeopardy to stop playing in my head? Oh, yeah. Sorry about the sound a little bit earlier. Got a lot of people complaining about that here in the chat, and I apologize for the technical difficulties we had early on this evening until I moved my mic over and got rid of the mixer thing that we do. Most of the sound through, it helps like background pop and other things from coming through the mic. We got Lawson. He says, hey, Jake, how does the government shutdown affect XRP and Catalyst? It could make XRP the only thing with clarity here in the US. We got the Pit Lane with the super chat. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Scrolling. Wow, we got a lot of super chats all right in a row here. We got Lawson Massey. Massey? I probably butchered that. I'm sorry, my man. He says, hey, Jake, we've been through that one. We've got Roberto. Oh, did I like consolidate these somehow? That's interesting. All right. Sometimes it kicks me up in the chat here, and I'm not able to find. Here he is, Money Pit. He says, Jake, what are your thoughts? These asset managers who have spot ETFs waiting approval, buying XRP through dark pools and OTC, and not driving up the price. Yeah, I mean, they are, purchasing over the market, but they're doing it through TWAP and VWAP, which is a time-weighted volume average or volume-weighted average. And so if you wanted to average into the market with 10, 20, 50, $100 million, you do that over a week or a month to be able to get the best price. And there are multiple providers in the market that do provide that. And then that way, you're getting the best price with no slippage. And you don't have to worry about moving the market with a large buy or sell order. We also provide that for our clients if you want to do a large institutional buy. We've got the sloppy taco. Okay. I say if I'm buying crypto with my truck driving company, is it tax deductible as an asset? No. That's going to be a treasury play. The only time that you're going to get the tax deduction for buying XRP or XLM or one of these digital assets is if you intended to use it with software for your business. So you're likely going to have to be running a node on the network. You're likely going to have to be some type of payment provider on the network, and actually facilitating business and buying the asset as software under Section 179 of the tax code in order to be able to take it as a deduction. We do have a family office that we work with that has done that, and we've got the letter from our CPA in order to make sure that that's legit. We haven't had any pushback from the IRS yet, but that doesn't mean that won't come. But I'm confident, based on the type of assets these are and his actual use in his business, that it will stand up to the IRS. We've got CJH Crypto. He says, it looks like the YCT is moving. When it goes through 145, it's here. You and your group are going to be legendary. Thanks for what you do. I'm assuming that's the yen to dollar trade. Where are we at on that? Let's look here. We've got, I normally look at the JPY 10-year yield. We're currently at 1.65. Nope, 1.635. Just waiting on a big move here and that. Again, that's going to come from oil. And then if you look at the yen versus the USD, we're currently sitting at 147. The guardrails for the yen versus the dollar have been right at 140 over the last couple years. The chart does look like it's going to break down, which actually means the yen will appreciate substantially against the dollar. And that is what people are concerned about in the reverse carry trade. So I do believe that with rates rising and the yen appreciating substantially against the US dollar, we are going to see the reverse carry trade unwind here in 2025. We got Brian. He says, why do you expect a rotation into XRP ETFs before BTC shows any signs of systemic risk? So in the past, if you watch previous crypto cycles, we always have a drop in Bitcoin dominance where there's a rotation into the altcoins. And that mechanism could easily be orchestrated with the ETFs now that we're going to have a standardized way for these ETFs to be launched. So if they withdraw all of these, current ETF filings, which is what the SEC has asked people to do. Other people will, once they've announced the standard for which they're going to allow spot ETFs for a single asset to have to meet in order to get immediate approval. I think you're going to see BlackRock, Vanguard. Both of them, I think, are going to throw their hat in the ring for XRP ETFs immediately, following that standard being put out. And then you're going to see the rotation. If Bitcoin is falling, if it falls 20, 30, 40%, people in ETFs are not here to hold Bitcoin. They're not believers in this asset class. They're here for gains. And if Bitcoin is no longer producing gains and something else is, they will chase the gains. FOMO, my man. And I do believe that's what's going to lead to the appreciation of XRP and the drop in Bitcoin dominance and the rotation through the ETFs that I've been mentioning. We got Johnny. What's up, my man? He says, Jake, thanks for all of your knowledge. Absolutely, my man. I love getting on here and having these conversations. I have my XRP cold storage and have set up the Wyoming LLC and set up the Mercury bank account. Do I transfer through an exchange in your preference if I do in the future? He says, do I transfer through an exchange in your preference if I do in the future? Not sure what you're asking there, Johnny. I'm sorry. It may be because it's late and my brain isn't working. But you might be asking if you need to move it back to an exchange if you plan to sell in the future. That's going to be what I'm going to guess is your question. The answer would be yes. You would have to move it back onto an exchange to be able to liquidate your position, whatever portion of that or the total that you wanted to sell, and then be able to send it to your bank account, a fiat bank account. And again, because it's an LLC and it's seasoned in, and you're using it for, payroll and other expenses for the corporation, paying yourself, all that stuff, you should be good to go. And Mercury does a good job. We like them. We got Jonathan Smith. He says, legend. I own a construction company in Ohio. It's an S Corp. What are your thoughts on setting up an XRP corporate treasury reserve? I don't like XRP held in an S Corp or a C Corp. And the reason for that is if you do get sued, especially if it is a construction company, I don't know if you have your assets held in that construction company and you've separated out the service-based business that you do. If you haven't done that, I would highly recommend that. I would have a holding company that owns the assets and a service company that leases the assets from the holding company, just to separate a lot of that liability. I don't know if you're a general contractor or a sub or what you do in the construction business. So I'm just giving you some general information here. But would highly recommend you separate the assets of the corporation away from whatever service is being provided, just in case there is a lawsuit. So that if somebody does sue you and take the stock in your S Corp, they can choose to liquidate those assets after they've taken control of the company. Not fun. Not fun at all. And that's why we often recommend, always almost, an LLC to hold digital assets, because there's equity units. The reason that we set things up there in Wyoming is there's strong charging order protection, creditor protection there in Wyoming, versus some other states like Ohio. An S Corp also limits your ability to be owned by a trust. It has to be owned by an individual. It cannot be owned by another corporation. So, S Corps are great for taxation, but you can take the S Corp election for an LLC and still get that pass-through taxation. So I understand why you would do it for your construction company, especially if you have partners or you want to grant equity to people. Stock options is fantastic, and ESOP can be done through a construction company. There's a lot of reasons that you would structure a construction company as an S Corp. But I wouldn't, normally recommend setting up a treasury component to that company, just in case, again, if you haven't segregated the liability or potential liability away from the corporation of getting sued and somebody does take ownership of your stock, they could absolutely liquidate those positions and pay themselves back, or take the XRP itself and then give you back the useless stock on the other side of that. So again, I would silo that out. I would borrow, I'm not going to give you financial advice. I've seen people borrow money from their corporation to buy XRP in their personal name and move that into a separate LLC that they manage or own through their living trust or their personal name, to be able to segregate that liability or potential loss of the asset away from the business. And then as it appreciates, you would need a reasonable interest rate that you're paying yourself back at, maybe 4% simple interest only per month. You want to make sure that you're current on those payments and everything is done the right way to maintain the corporate veil and the separation and segregation of the company's assets versus yours. I would suggest working with a business attorney to get that situated if you wanted to go that route. So just my 2 cents. You can tell me to, go on down the road and do whatever you want. But that's the way that I think would be better suited to mitigate loss or potential loss of the assets. We've got Azing Giant. Interesting name. They say, hey, Jake, I'm 22 and I joined the mastermind yesterday. Awesome, dude. See, that's so cool. I wish I had had an opportunity to join a mastermind when I was 22 years old. Kudos to you, man. He said, convinced my parents to invest much more than me into XRP. So excited. Thanks for helping. You were a big factor of credibility. Thank you. I really do appreciate that. It's interesting that you bring this up because it's been the topic of conversation with a couple different family offices that have reached out. There's a second or third generation. Many people that run family offices or are the matriarch or patriarch that made the original money are older and very skeptical of digital assets, and rightly so, right? There's a lot of tomfoolery that happens in this asset class, and it is sketchy compared to real estate or private equity or some of the other things on the market out there that have, good returns that they know and can touch and feel, right? The older generation tends to want touch and feel, gold, real estate. They still like stocks for whatever reason, even though they, don't touch stock certificates. But anyway, they reach out and they say, hey, Johnny, who's their grandson or son, wants to invest in this stuff. And we don't understand it. And we Googled, and you're kind of the only person that seems like they're legitimate in this space based on our discernment. Can you meet with us and have a conversation? I say, absolutely. And we walk them through, why we're doing it the way that we're doing it and the reasons that things really are sketchy. And most of it is speculative in this asset class. And then we share our conviction on different assets with them, and then they make their investments. Most of these family offices manage their own portfolio, but they're willing to give, somebody in the second or third generation a couple $1 million to see what they can do with it, to kind of prove themselves, so that they know that they're going to be making good judgment calls as they take over the management of the portfolio or get on the board later on as they grow up. We got Clint. He says, hey, Jake, question, Cold Wallet or Caleb and Brown? Ooh. Depends on what you're comfortable with. I'll say this, Caleb and Brown does have segregated custody. They do use Fireblocks. They do have some type of insurance. I think it's like $10 million on accounts. I don't know that that's been paid out. There's been a couple situations that I've been made aware of where I don't know that they covered the fraud or the loss on that account. We're going to see. I have to circle back on that. So give me a rain check on it. I don't know if they did or not. Not saying they didn't. I just don't know. But they do have some pieces of institutional custody in place, but they don't have all of them. They're not bankruptcy remote. And they use MPC technology, which is not as robust as HSM technology and the FIPS standards here in the US that are required for qualified custodians. They're also not a licensed financial institution there in Australia. They do run audits on their stuff, and they are much better than a lot of the other options out there. So if you want somebody you can call to be able to sell stuff. I think they're great for that. They do charge a very high premium for that benefit, but they don't charge you on the custody assets like we do. But they're also not a qualified custodian. So, it's kind of a give and take. I would probably, it depends on who you are, is really what it comes down to. How much responsibility do you want to take in your own hands, and how much counterparty risk do you want? If you are okay with some radical responsibility, and you're okay with, or you don't want any counterparty risk, I would suggest the cold wallet. And my favorite cold wallet is Decent. There's plenty of other good ones out there also. People like Tangent, people like Arculus and LEPAL, and a bunch of other stuff. I'm just Decent. I like that one. I like the UI. I like the breadth of assets that it has. I like the thumbprint, to be able to access stuff. The biometric. It does have a code just in case you, God forbid, something happens to you and you pass away. Your family can still access it if they have the code. They can get into it. And you can also add a 25th seed word to make it a little bit more robust for, regenerating the wallet or protections of your keys. So that's my 2 cents. I personally don't mind radical responsibility. I had almost everything that I had on cold wallets before I moved it into institutional custody. So, up to you. If you have over 100,000 XRP or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value, including traditional assets, Digital Wealth Partners can hold your assets at Anchorage. You will have to set up an LLC because they only deal with corporations. They don't deal with individuals. But, if you want it held at the same place as BlackRock, this is how you do it. This is how you get access to it. And we're able to provide that service for people. We do have a special going on right now. If you have over 300,000 XRP or at least 900,000 in digital assets, we're dropping the AUM fees to 75 basis points, which is more than half off what we normally do for less than 5 million. And you have 9 more days that we're running that special until 10/10. If you want to get into Anchorage and work with Digital Wealth Partners and you have that level of exposure to digital assets and you want institutional custody and all the cool stuff that we provide over there, we would love to work with you, and we can give you, those terms if you want to get started in the near future. More of these just lining up again for the super chats. Let's scroll on down here. We've got Journey to Six back again. He says, given that the U.S. is ramping up the shale production and OPEC has spare capacity, how do you see oil spiking? Are you basing it off the USD falling? I'll be very clear about this. I don't give 2 poops how it affects the U.S. oil market. Don't care. It needs to affect the yen versus WTI. And that's the chart I'm watching. Yen versus WTI. USD versus, WTI. I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. It needs to spike in the yen and cause inflation in Japan's economy. If we have access to oil over here and it doesn't hurt us at all, awesome. I would prefer that. I really don't want to pay more money for gas at the pump, but it needs to affect Japan. And so that's the pair that I'm watching. And it just needs to, again, Strait of Hormuz needs to close. It could be a deal with Russia. It could be something with Peru. If one of the trade lanes or lines that leads to, most of Japan's oil gets cut or stopped for a certain period of time, that's the problem. And it doesn't even have to affect the US at all. Firenut 911. Mastermind member since July. Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for being there. He said, love the content. Ripple speaks about over 100 banks are already using XRP. How is this true? And the price of XRP so low? So everybody's mad XRP's price isn't moving. What's it doing? Holding price stability so that it can settle payments. What it's supposed to do. You don't need huge amounts of volumes if you have a ton of available supply and not that much demand. 100 banks settling through XRP into foreign jurisdictions through ODL or other Ripple products. And I don't think they're actually using XRP yet. Okay. They're probably using RippleNet and some of the other products that Ripple has. Those could be messaging. They could be ODL, where they're borrowing the XRP from Ripple and using the XRP that way. So they're not having to buy it themselves. They're just borrowing it from Ripple. Ripple has 4.8 billion XRP that they do lend out and earn a return on. I don't know how much that is, but it's substantial based on my conversation with Uphold a couple years ago. So that's probably another revenue driver for them, which is great, especially if you own their equity. So we need, and here's the other piece. Ripple cannot be the cause of price appreciation for XRP. I've been over this lots of times. If the price appreciation of XRP is correlated to Ripple's announcements or Ripple's efforts, XRP will be deemed a security of Ripple. We do not want that. We need XRP to be a commodity or a currency, something separate of Ripple completely. And we need the price appreciation for XRP to be caused by a party outside of Ripple. I don't have my coffee cup tonight, but I would show you R3 if I did. We've got Crypto Connoisseur. He says, hey, legend, how long does it take you for your team to set up everything for us, only LLC and such? The LLC takes 2-3 days most of the time. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. I've seen it take up to 10 business days. Just depends. But what I will say is most of the time it's pretty quick as long as you choose the right name. I would make sure that your name is not used by somebody else. And as long as it's not copied or there's another EIN in that state or, domestically. Oh, thank you.
Cold now.
That's fine. It's still got caffeine in it.
Did you get that super chat?
I did. Yes. Thank you. Coffee tonight, no tea. That's okay. So yeah, it's a couple days on the LLC, and then a couple days to get onboarded into Digital Wealth Partners also. Pit Lane says, if someone wanted to sell some of their XRP versus borrowing against it, which exchange would you recommend selling from your decent cold wallet? I would work with Digital Wealth Partners. It's only 20 basis points with no spread. It is the cheapest option on the market to be able to liquidate your holdings if you're working with Digital Wealth Partners. Now, if you don't have enough to work with Digital Wealth Partners, I get that. I would start orchestrating some partnerships with OTC Desk. Kraken has a great OTC desk. Uphold has a great OTC desk, and they're a Cent platform for institutional investors. Coinbase has an OTC desk. A lot of these large exchanges have an OTC desk, and all you have to do is reach out and email their support team and say, hey, I got a larger transaction that I would like to execute. Can you get me connected to somebody at the OTC desk? And believe me, they will pass you along to the right person. If you need contacts, we have contacts at all those places, and I'm happy to, let you know and make introductions. Just be aware it needs to be $250,000 or more. So unless you're the real deal, unless you're buying large amounts on a regular basis and ready to pull the trigger today, it's not really, an introduction that makes sense right now. But if you are looking to buy or sell more than $250,000, we do have the connections to OTC desks where the costs are substantially lower. Floyd, what's up, man? He says, when you talk about the pricing for XRP, is it sarcasm? Because some people always ask, are you serious about your price prediction? It's not sarcasm. I don't know why people don't believe me. I don't own anything else. It's hard for me to impress upon people what this asset is going to be and the value that it's going to accumulate over the next 5 and 10 years. There will never be, in my lifetime, another opportunity to make this much money in that short of a period of time, even if you were doing something illegal. I don't know that you could make this much money in this short a period of time. Like, I've seen other people do it, but it's been some sketchy stuff or drugs. Like, to just invest in something and hold it, not have to do anything, and make this much money that I know is coming to this network and this asset. I has never existed, and I don't think ever will, ever again. Now, I can't say ever again. I'm just going to say for sure in my lifetime. This is, people talk about a once in a lifetime thing. I think this is like once in a multi-generational deal. The financial system doesn't shift just every day, you know. We got Bill, Mr. Clemens. He says minimum XRP price for 2025 with no reverse carry trade. I don't know why people ask me this stuff, and people got like butthurt when Paul Barron backed me into a corner and he was like, just the ETFs, none of the other stuff. They're like, oh, you hedged. Man, I didn't hedge. He backed me into a corner and said, okay, remove this from the theory and then give me a number. I'm not going to do it again, Bill. I'm not hedging. I'm not going to talk about the reverse carry trade not unwinding, because I'm like 99.9999999% sure that it does this year. So I'm not even going to entertain the possibility that it doesn't, or what price would be if it didn't. Craig, what's going on, Craig? He says, hey, legend. Appreciate you, man. What's your opinion on when retail can't buy XRP due to large adoption rate? I'm trying to get past the 20K XRP, feeling great on my goal. Thanks for all that you do. Congrats, dude. That's awesome. You know, we talk to a lot of people. I know people that have like a lot of XRP. And then I know a lot of people that have, you know, very similar amounts to you and even less. So congrats on the amount that you got. If you got any amount, you're doing better than, you know, most people. There's only 7 million wallets. There might only be, call it, you know, 500,000 people on the planet that I think actually own XRP. So if you're in that group, you're doing really, really well. There will come a point, in my opinion, where it's no longer available on exchanges for purchase. I do think that that's not too far in the distant future. You know, as price escalates and it is starting to be used at scale, the institutions will just gobble up whatever comes out on the open market from retail. And eventually the exchanges, you know, they're going to need all the XRP that they have for themselves. And not going to be a whole lot left for anybody else. Most of it's going to be through DATs and ETFs, the way that people get exposure. I don't know that they'll own the underlying bearer asset. This person says they like Nano X or Stacks. I have used Ledger in the past. I will say this, I do not use it or recommend it anymore. Just my personal preference. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to say why or badmouth them in any manner. I'm just saying I do not use Ledger, and that's a personal choice for me. We've got some more super chats going on. We got Michael. What's up, man? He says the majority of my XRP is on Webull. Oh, Michael. They are switching to Coinbase. Should I be concerned? They won't allow it to be moved to a cold wallet for now. Yeah, don't buy it on Webull, my man. No wonder. This is good. This is good for you that they're moving it over to Coinbase. You'll have access to it. You'll be able to take it off the platform. Kind of like Robinhood. Any of these stock platforms where you're buying crypto, they're going to really restrict your ability to move assets off of there. And like, that makes sense. Like, they're not letting people take their stock certificates off the platform. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what you're doing when you're taking your crypto off of a platform, you're basically effectively taking the underlying asset and removing it from their custody. So it makes sense. I'm glad they're moving you to Coinbase. I think that you're going to be better off there because they're not going to let you move it otherwise. Honest Aim, my man, how are you, sir? He said, thanks for your Mr. Legacy. I'm cool with that. That's a pretty good one. Legends is like, it's kind of cringe to be like, I don't know, makes me feel that way. I really appreciate it. I really do, and it makes me feel good when people call me that. But again, that was like a Ripple deal. You know, I was at an event, and there was a lady from Ripple that said, "You're a legend at Ripple." I was really taken aback by that. But anyway, on to the next thing. Sorry. Thank you for all you do for the little guys. Hi to the tea lady, saying hi to everyone. If you aren't in the mastermind, social at least, you are crazy. The community, the knowledge, all you need. I appreciate that, man. Yeah. You know, Denny, well, not Denny, Honest Aim has been there from the jump. And you know, we started the mastermind almost 3 years ago. Be January 26th will be 3 years that we've had the mastermind. We've got almost 8,000 people that have joined the mastermind at this point that all have aligned interest in digital assets, want to become better people, want to lift other people up, want financial education and business resources, access to stuff you're not going to get anywhere else, and information that you're not going to get anywhere else that we provide there. And we do it for as little as $25 a month for social. And you don't even need that to start. You can just go to beyondbroke.com and use the code right up here at the top. It is Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO, like Mary Oscar, gets you the first month for $2 there in social or Carbon One. We posted, you know, shareholder notice from Brad Garlinghouse in the Carbon One chat earlier today. So they do get access to that information almost real time. As soon as it comes across my desk, I pass it in there so that other people can see what's going on, because some other people are also holders of Ripple equity there in the group. And so we share that with the Carbon One community, and I think that's pretty cool, along with many other perks. We also have a recovery service. So if your assets do get stolen, if you are defrauded, if you are phished, if your wallet is hacked, and you see your assets leaving and going somewhere else, anybody that's in Carbon One or higher in that community, we have an immediate recovery program that goes into effect that we started paying for today. So anybody that's at those tiers, you're going to get access to that service and immediately be able to work with our team to recover your crypto. Currently, that team has recovered about $7.5 million worth of digital assets that's been stolen from our clients. So if that sounds cool to you, if you want that extra precaution in place, Carbon One is a fantastic way to get that set up. El Guape. I say, Jake, thanks for sharing your knowledge. Question, can I buy XRP under my company name, a corporation, so I can save some dollars in taxes? I don't know where you're located. I don't know what type of company you have. I don't know what other liability is associated with your corporation. We just went through this a little bit earlier here and talked about the S Corp and why that's not ideal in most circumstances to buy XRP. That gentleman was in Ohio, and he gave me that information and the type of company that he manages. If you set up an LLC, I would look at this the same way you look at real estate. Anybody that deals with real estate, if they're smart, will set up a company that holds that real estate and segregates that away from their personal assets, and also segregates the liability of that piece of real estate away from the rest of their portfolio and their person, in case somebody falls on that property or something happens. And ideally, you have a service company that you're leasing that property to. I'll tell you this. So again, I took like a lot of, I would call it, went to college like everybody else. There was like 3 classes in college where I actually learned anything. In my business class, they talked about LLCs and how to structure stuff. And he said, look, you should always separate assets from service. So if you're a lawn care business, You should have a holding company that owns the assets that you use to perform the job, and all of those get leased to the service-based LLC. And when you do it that way, if somebody sues the service-based LLC, or you hit a water line, or you rear end somebody, or something bad happens, which inevitably is going to, especially if you have people that work for you. When somebody sues the company, you have the insurance policy that should pay out, but you also have the additional protection that those assets are held by a separate corporation so that they're not up for grabs in the lawsuit. And if you do need to file bankruptcy with that service-based company, you can. File bankruptcy, spin up another service-based company, lease the assets back to that one, change the name a little bit. Voila, you're back in business. You didn't lose all your assets in a lawsuit. Works the same way with properties. So anyway, you should look at the same way for your digital assets. I would segregate liability. I would set it up in its own special bubble over here, away from any other liability or any other business transactions that you are participating in. We have Travis, my man. He says, yo, Jake, the hot take. Do you think the first leg up in the ETFs is ETF approvals? Then second leg will be in November when Swift goes live. Thanks again. Happy to say I chatted with the next Bezos. Wow. I will take that compliment. Thank you. You know, I don't, it's possible, right? I kind of think we do see a pit stop between 50 and $100 for XRP when the ETFs go live. And then I think on the other side of that, I think the reverse carry trade could happen after the ETFs go live and we do get that rotation out of Bitcoin and the next leg up in alts. And then there's a big crash of everything. And then XRP does moon to, you know, thousands of dollars. I think that that's probably the scenario that makes the most sense. Because then they can, you know, cause the supply shock using the ETFs in that scenario because they are already all live. And maybe BlackRock holds out and waits on their ETF until that's needed to be able to drive demand to really push it to those high levels. I don't know. I know I'm waiting on BlackRock and their ETF though for the big numbers. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can slice this and it might play out, but the end game is still the end game on the reverse carry trade and the domino theory. This person is asked, do you still have the same conviction on Velo? I mean, I didn't really have a ton of conviction on Velo to begin with. I think it'll do well. I think it's a specific application that's built out on top of Hyperledger. I think there's a lot of people that hype that up, or ZBEC, or like, you know, Stronghold, or some of these other tokens that are probably a little lofty in their price projections on it. I think it'll do well, but I don't own any. So if that tells you anything. Rock Corp, my man, good to see you. He says, Mr. Claver, the legend. Will we, and can I ask when, be able to custody XLM, XDC, HBAR, DAG, Flare, and other assets with Digital Wealth Partners? HBAR, we're about 10 days away on HBAR, looking around the 10th of this month for HBAR institutional custody there at Anchorage with Digital Wealth Partners. We can already do XLM, good to go on that. XDC, DAG, and Flare are going to probably come next year, if I'm being honest, unless we onboard with some other institutional custodians. And the one that I would really like to onboard with doesn't give two poos about any of those. They care about XRP, Bitcoin, and ETH. If we were able to partner with them, I think you guys would be fine with it. I think, you know, you would be excited just like I would when we get that one done. We got Mr. Crypto M. He says, El Jefe. What's up, dude? He says, was a little disappointed that the Ripple released another billion today. Was hoping for a super supply shortage for ETFs. Do you think the added supply will impact the price appreciation much in mid-October? Well, let's actually look at what happened today. XRP escrow release, whale tracker. That's August 2nd, August 9th. Let's do October 1st. Unlocked 1 billion. Several. So 500 million, 400 million, and 100 million XRP chunks. I don't know how much was relocked up. Let's see here. So there's 3 transactions totaling 1 billion today. 500, 400, 100. Typically, approximately 800 million is returned to escrow and locked until the following month. And it's not the following month, it's actually the back end of the escrow that they lock it on. And roughly 200 million XRP is injected into the circulating supply. So I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's a billion more XRP coming onto the market. It's never a billion XRP coming onto the market. They don't do that. Every other month this year, they have re-escrowed 700 million and only released 300 million onto the market, which is still a lot. Not saying it's not. But we've seen price move up. We're currently at $2.98 on its way back to $3. So the escrow release is definitely not hurting the price movement. We're back at a level now that was resistance just not too long ago. And if we get the break here, I think we're headed much, much higher. So look out for XRP in the next 24 hours here to make a pretty decent move to the upside if it's going to happen. Uptober is what they're calling it. We got Baldy Mall 500. They say, when do we start to see real move up conservatively and bullishly? ETFs, and then Japan. Japan is the key to all of this really playing out to the levels that we want to see. We got Blue Eyes with 3 exclamation points. Interesting. They say, excuse me, 589 on the super chat. Thank you so much. They say Jake XRP, not financial advice, rockstar guru. You guys, version here to crypto. Oh boy. If XRP gets delisted on exchanges, will I be able to retrieve and sell my XRP? That's already happened, my man. That happened in 2020 when the lawsuit was filed. They gave periods of time for people to get their asset off of the exchange, and many of them just let you hold it on their exchange. You just couldn't do anything with it. So you will be able to retrieve it. You would even be able to sell it. You just wouldn't be able to buy it if it gets delisted. Very similar to the position that people were in last time when the lawsuit happened. We got Owen Smith. Owen, good to see you, my man. He says, which coins do you think, like for long-term portfolio, 15 years, if you had to give 7 coins, obviously XRP being the largest position? Okay. Actually just did this with one of the family offices that we're working with. So XRP, like you mentioned, XLM, HBAR, Hash, XDC, Avalanche, and Chainlink would be my 7 that I think are going to gain a very significant portion of the market share over the next 15 years. Those would be the 7 tokens if I had to, like, gun to my head, pick them. Oh boy, we got 30 minutes left here, and we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got Cotton Clarks. They say gold and silver prices are crazy up this week. Your domino theory says they will not be spared in the reverse carry trade explode. Are they possibly getting set up now for the shenanigans somehow? They are. I do think you're going to see a $4,000 gold before we see price collapse down. Where is XAU? on TradingView. Where are we at now on gold? We were at 3,800 bucks the other day. We're currently at 3867. I do think gold reaches 4,000 before it comes crumbling back down to around 2,100. I sold my gold, just transparently, at 3,500 bucks. 3,450 is where I sold off and bought more digital assets. I wasn't sure if that was going to be the peak or the top, and it was going to continue higher. Obviously, I was off by a little bit, and a couple $100 never hurts. But I do think we're closing in on the top here for gold around $4,000, and I think that's going to be when the fat lady sings and pulls it back down to earth around 2,000, 2,100 bucks, somewhere in there, when the reverse carry trade unwinds. If you look at the previous top on it, that's where the previous top of gold was right around 2,000, 2,050, 2,100, somewhere in there. I think you're going to have a very sharp pullback from the peak here. You just had a huge expansion in gold very quickly on the chart, and most of the time when you see that, you normally do get a very sharp pullback to the previous all-time high. What it was, blockchain backer say, double tap, bull flag, back test. We haven't had the back test yet on top of the previous all-time high for gold. So just be watching for that. I know that we got a lot of gold bulls over here that are in crypto. I'm with you, bullish on gold over the long term. I just think you are in for a significant price shock after around, I think it could get over 4,000 before we see the big move down. And then silver, we got a lot of silver bulls here as well, which is great. Physical silver is awesome. The people that are telling you silver's going to 500 bucks, it's not going to happen. If silver went to $500, the manufacturing industry would collapse on itself. So many electronics require silver in order to function correctly. Your phone, solar panels, almost any electronic in your house has some silver in it. And if it becomes too expensive, there are no immediate substitutes that could be put into that position currently to be able to fix that supply problem. I think $100 silver, okay, I could see $100 silver. Anything more than that, and that would be a 40 to 1, which is the historical ratio for gold to silver right now. If gold's trading at 4,000, you would have $100 silver, and that would be a 40 to 1, which is the historical ratio for gold to silver. Right now, you are getting that run in silver. Again, I know many people have been accumulating for decades on silver and anticipating, this crazy run up to, astronomical prices where it gets repriced or this, that, or the other. Look, the Hunt brothers cornered the market in the 1980s and pushed it to 50 bucks. That was an outside orchestrated scenario to be able to get it to that price. I think a realistic price back in the 80s would have been, 20, 25 bucks is probably what it would have gotten to without the Hunt brothers orchestrating that. Maybe half of what it was. And so, that chart's just been messed up for a long time. Silver's been the only thing that hasn't been an all-time high in 50 years, pretty much out of anything else on the planet. And it needs to be that way. Like JP Morgan spoofs the market, and people can be mad about that, but it's keeping the cost of your goods and the manufacturing of the world at bay to be able to use that commodity for what it's great at, which is connectivity. So until there's a suitable replacement like graphene, I think graphene's coming a long way. There's going to be progressive tech that comes along and other synthetic stuff that might be able to be produced at scale. Until that's in place, though, we need silver to stay at a reasonable price. Michael says, I hear you and Zach talk about the inflows rising price, but y'all never talk about outflows that would also control price to stay low. So wouldn't it stay low and not hit these? It's supply and demand, Michael. There are no outflows on ETFs right now, but ETFs are a double-edged sword. I like that you point this out. So Bitcoin, as an example, all-time high, right? Was at the all-time high before the halving. That is because of ETFs, and it will happen the same way on the way down. And that's why I think you're going to see a $20,000 Bitcoin in the not too distant future. Once we see significant outflows on BTC, these are fair weather holders. They're going to be liquidating positions like a madman and rolling it to whatever is moving in the right direction. I'm a fair weather fan for the Cowboys. I'll watch them if they're doing good. I'm Dallas born and raised, but the people that are invested in Bitcoin ETFs, they are fair weather Bitcoin people. They are not hodlers. They're not diehard. Okay, they're not here for that type of volatility in the market. So it's also going to be exacerbated on the way down, just like you point out here. So with XRP, though, there aren't any outflows on ETFs yet. There will only be inflows. And the people that are holding the bearer asset or using it on exchanges don't have an allocation to that ETF to put pressure on that financial product. So they're two very different things. That's a packaged financial product that's traded amongst stocks and by investment advisors and other people inside their portfolio. Exchanges are separate of that, and the bearer asset is separate of that too. So hopefully that makes sense. We're scrolling on down here. We got I'm going to go another 15 minutes or so, and they're going to wrap it up tonight. We got Brandon Beecham. He says, hello, Jake. Love the channel and community here. Do you see the carry trade unwinding before we get some sort of alt season euphoric top? I think it'll coincide with it. Again, $4,000 gold, stocks at an all-time high. We're poised for a substantial crisis, and they never let a good crisis go to waste. Let's go, Muddin. What's up, my man? He says, brother man, got laid off earlier this year. No work till spring. Please tell me 3 to 4 digits XRP January. Look, I'll say this. Please don't bet your whole life savings on XRP. It should be disposable income. Please be responsible. Do not take, crazy amounts of leverage and dump it in here and the justification of the time frame that you think this is going to happen in. I am not here to promote that. I'm not here to promote people being irresponsible. This person says Bitcoin will not crash. Okay, Cliff. I'm not here to argue with you. I hope you're right. I hope people make a bunch of money and I'm wrong. But I'm 100% certain that I'm not wrong. Look, don't take irresponsible action to buy XRP or do anything that's going to mess up your life. Please be responsible when participating and investing in crypto. We got Wake the Fork Up. They say, devil's advocate. R3/4 says Sol came out with major updates last week. Swift says Lena and Link with JP Morgan and 29 other banks on the board. If true, can XRP price appreciation go up big still? I like the devil's advocate because I'm sure there's people out there that listen to the FUD and don't understand everything that's actually going on. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this, if the government shuts down and there's no clarity on any of those other assets, there's only one choice. And R3 is who told me this. I can't talk about the other stuff that we did with R3 for our project, but I can talk about the initial conversations. Okay. And in the initial conversations, we said, well, what should we settle through? And how's this going to work? Should we try to make it interoperable with XRP or settle through that or, use XDC? And they said, look, we will only settle through something that has regulatory clarity here in the US and enough liquidity to settle. Period. And we said, so XRP? And they said, so, you can have R3 say Sol and test a pilot and do this and that. Doesn't mean anything. You can have Swift come out and say that they're using a messaging layer that's EVM based, not settlement. And they announced that they've got their own, prototype blockchain for settlement now, which I read, Brad Garlinghouse's statement about that in his shareholder email that he sent out earlier today. So if you guys were here earlier, you heard that one. And if you haven't, this is recorded. You can go back and listen to it later on after we finish up here tonight. Link is great. CCIP is great. It's great as an oracle. It's horrible at settlement. It's not what it's used for. All of these blockchains have fantastic capabilities and specific niche use cases for what they're going to be used for. And if they don't, like, the whole value proposition for the chain are the use cases, just like XRP. XRP's use case is settlement, tokenization of financial products and our real world assets, and the settlement of markets and trading between individual stablecoins and the value through the DEX to be able to settle things between counterparties when they trade. Like, that's the whole value proposition. But you need an oracle for the smart contract capability. You need an EVM sidechain for more robust, smart contract capability to be able to, have certain financial transactions and escrow and all the other stuff that needs to go along with that. Mortgages, HELOCs, all the other stuff. You're going to need, the EVM for that. And then Solana, I think, could have digital titles on it. It's great for NFTs. Not great for financial markets. So again, each one of these has the thing that they are special at and good at. And XRP has what it's made for. And that's why it will be adopted in that capacity. And these other blockchains will be adopted in their capacities. But they don't overlap. They all work together. So no, I am not concerned about any of that against XRP. I'm highly confident that XRP will prevail and move to the prices that I've already discussed based on certain catalysts playing out. We got beep, bop, boop, beep. What's up, man? He says, are you happy Jake Clayton is gone? Because it could be confusing sounding with Jake Claver. I know a gentleman that knows Jay pretty well and has his beer with him every once in a while. And I don't mind Jay. I know a lot of people are still burning and butthurt about the SEC lawsuit with Ripple. I'm cool with it. Max always texting me good stuff in the middle of the live. The whole benefit of the lawsuit was that people could continue to aggregate XRP. So many more people own XRP today than they did 5 years ago. There was only 2.7 million wallets at the time when the lawsuit was filed. There's 7 million plus wallets today. That's another 4 million people that have been able to buy this asset over the last 5 years that would have never had this opportunity. Cliff says he's been holding for 5 years. My man, you don't agree with me on Bitcoin, but at least you're holding that XRP. That's okay. It's fine to disagree with people. As long as it's respectful debate, I really don't mind it. We got Jermaine. I'm going to butcher it. I'm sorry, my man. Appreciate the super chat. He says, which website of yours do I go to have the LLC created? It is digitalfamilyoffice.io. You're just going to go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and go to the services page. You click on LLC formation, and we will set you up a holding company for your digital assets, a holding company that manages alternative investments with a specific sleeve for crypto. And we have all that outlined in the operating agreement that's specific for that type of entity. If you had an attorney draft that for you, it's going to be somewhere between $1,800 and $2,500 just for the operating agreement that we provide you as a template when you work with us and set up an LLC with us. If you want to use the code 50OFF, 50 OFFDAG that gets you everything end to end, all you would ever need for the LLC to be able to manage your digital assets for $2,000. If please, and you can go try to use LegalZoom. Go ahead. It's not going to be filed the right way. You're not going to maintain your anonymity. You're still going to need a registered agent. You're going to need the operating agreement. Your corporate veil is not going to be maintained. You're not going to get the benefit of charging order protection there in Wyoming. You're not going to know how to transfer your assets into the LLC without tax implications. You're probably going to file the wrong type of LLC and cause tax implications for yourself. I've talked about how to do this, all on your own multiple times. But if you do want to work with us to be able to do that and not have to worry about any of that other stuff and know that it gets done right, we would love to work with you. And again, you just go to the website, digitalfamilyoffice.io, and use the code 50OFF, 50OFFDAG, like Digital Ascension Group, LLC, and that gets you everything end to end, including the corporate veil, and everything that's provided there to maintain your, creditor protection, for $2,000. We got JVDM. He says, "Hey, legend, what's up, my man? I have a self-managed super fund in Australia, 100% in crypto. What do you mean when you say get out of there? I can benefit from the fund to the retirement age. Not if they impose a 30% unrealized capital gains tax on the self-managed super fund. I hope they don't do that. They were supposed to pass that back at the end of June this year, and it didn't go through. Now they've kicked the can a little bit, but unrealized capital gains tax is stupid. But governments around the world are talking about it and potentially implementing it. So what does that mean? Well, if you had XRP in your self-managed super fund and it goes to crazy high prices, let's say you bought it at 50 cents. We'll just do $1 to make it easy. You bought it at $1. You got a million XRP at $1. Okay, $1 million in your self-managed super fund, and it goes to $1,000 a piece. You got $1 billion now in the self-managed super fund, and they impose the 30% capital gains, unrealized capital gains tax on you. You now owe $300 million to the Australian government for an asset that you never sold, just because you had it in a self-managed super fund while it appreciated. That sucks. I don't want to do that. We just had a gentleman that worked with us and completely liquidated his self-managed super fund in kind and is moving it into an LLC here in the US to be able to circumvent that potential outcome. Not recommending that for you. This gentleman also had US citizenship, so a little bit different scenario. But a family trust there in Australia is going to have tax implications up front. But if you pay those taxes up front while the asset's low in value and it goes into the trust while it's low in value, then it can accumulate value and grow there, and you get the benefit of it being inside the trust while that's going on. Or you can get the heck offshore there in Australia. You can go to Dubai. We have a great partnership with people that are setting people up there in Dubai from Australia. We have other people that help you get set up in the British Virgin Islands, getting your stuff offshore, out of your name, out of your taxable estate, away from the Australian government's ability to take it from you. So you do you. We actually just had one of our members that used to live in New York move to Australia. And he loves it there. The Gold Coast is awesome. Sydney's awesome. The weather's beautiful. I am jealous. I want to go. I've never been to Australia. It's on my bucket list. The government there doesn't sound very fun, though. And neither does the UK or anything under the parliament. So it is residency-based taxes there in Australia. So if you do move offshore, they got some pretty strict guidelines on how many days you can visit per year. But as long as you meet those, you're going to be okay. We got OMG Tracer. Have any of your clients secured funding through bank and bought XRP from your team to generate returns on it, almost like a high leverage business plan? People have borrowed against their XRP, bought more XRP, and then put that XRP to work to be able to generate returns, to be able to cover the interest and pay them in. We've had people do HELOCs, but not like an SBA loan or anything else. Some people have used credit cards, which I do not recommend. This person says whole life. That's a great way to do it. If you got a cash value whole life insurance policy, we have that now. My guy is currently backed up for the next 2 weeks because we just mentioned this in the town hall. But if you do want life insurance and you want a term that's convertible into whole life, I think that's a great way to go about it now. It protects you today. It gets the underwriting done. It locks it in so that if you have a health scare later, you don't have to re-underwrite the policy and you're still going to be able to get the insurance. And it's convertible later on to a whole life policy that you can use for infinite banking. Super cheap on the term policies most of the time in comparison. And you can wait till you can max fund a whole life insurance policy for the infinite banking concept. We are rolling that out. We do have people you can work with. If you want that product, you can go to xurelegacy.com. That's XURE legacy.com. And, you can get access to the variable or the term life that's convertible to a whole life later on. We got Matt, my man. He says, I work for New York City, wake up every day at 4:15 and should be sleeping, but there's not a shot I missed your show. Call me crazy, but it seems XRP might play a big role in the US becoming the crypto capital, according to Trump. Go to sleep, my man. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your evening to hang out with us. You can listen back to this later, or you can join the mastermind. We do stuff at much more accommodating hours. If you are there in the group, both of the town halls are in the morning at 11 a.m. on Mondays, Central Standard Time, and 9 a.m. on Saturdays, Central Standard Time. If you want to join and get access to over 2,000 hours of content, over 8,000 other people that have an interest in crypto, real world, in real life events. Our next one is in San Francisco on the 26th of October. If you want details on that, you can join the mastermind and figure out where the location is. We're putting that on out there, and on and on and on. We try to provide tons of value there in the mastermind. I always want people to feel like, wow, I would pay more for this. So if that sounds like a cool place to be to you, you can join at beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO also capitalized, get you the first month for $2. And you can try it out. If you like it, you can stay. There's no contract. It's month to month. And over, 7,500, almost 8,000 people are choosing to be there every single month. We got Travis XRP. He says, we need that spike in oil. Hand goes up vertical. Thank you for all that you do, brother, from Louisiana. Glad to hear you, man. Hope that you're doing well. Crazy Cajun, brother, going on out there. Appreciate you hanging out with me on a Wednesday night and for the super chat. We're going to grab 3 more of these super chats, then we're going to wrap it up tonight. We got LFA Pookie. They say, first time in crypto. Heard XRP will be going higher than Bitcoin per coin. Over the long term, I agree with that. So is that where Bitcoin is valued at right now? Is per coin, or am I missing something? Yeah, I think XRP will be millions, potentially $1 million, 2023. Sorry, not 2023, 2032. Man, I need more coffee or I need to go to sleep, one of the two. But 2032, I think, is when you could see a 6+ digit XRP, maybe even sooner than that, depending on the derivatives market and how much stuff gets tokenized by 2030. We've got Soul Shift. They say, I'm so grateful I found you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. XLM is like XRP's little shadow brother on the charts. Can this continue during XRP's appreciation? It would give a great opportunity for a profit take while never selling XRP. I don't know that you're going to get the appreciation on XLM. When BlackRock announced, well, they didn't even announce, somebody found the iShares XRP ETF trust filing in Delaware. XRP decoupled from XLM and jumped twice the value in 30 minutes, while XLM just stayed trucking along. So I think, and there's no ETFs for XLM currently, but I will say this. With the new standardized format for spot ETFs, we could see a bunch of other spot ETFs that haven't even been filed for yet. We know we got Doge, Litecoin, Hedera, Solana, and XRP. We know we get those 5 tokens, but we could absolutely see somebody launch an XLM or an XDC ETF. The problem with the XDC, and the reason I don't think that's going to happen, is you need futures markets trading for at least 6 months, or you need a certain amount of trading volume or market cap before I think the SEC is going to allow stuff to go through. And I think that's going to be listed in the standard for what's allowed to pass through at certain times. So I don't know if they're going to, again, keep it with the futures market and time frame there, or there's going to be additional considerations that are required for the standardized way that they're going to allow these things to go through. But XLM could quite possibly meet those standards and also have ETFs sneakily launched alongside some of this other stuff. And if that happens, it could definitely correlate with XRP. But if it is not, there are no ETFs for XLM and XRP gets the only ETFs, XRP is definitely going to decouple, in my opinion, from XLM. We got Jesse, my man. He says, "Hey Jake, I just bought 1,500 XRP on Coinbase and it won't let me transfer it to my cold wallet till Saturday. I need to buy more. Who should I use?" Kraken. Kraken is the way to go, my man. If you're going to be doing larger orders like that, if you're going to be buying at least $100,000 worth, just shoot our team an email and they can get you the OTC desk over there. info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. We're going to take this one. We're going to wrap it up tonight with Haley. Hey, ma'am. She says, 2 questions. I have invested less than 500K in XRP. Can we still pay for assistance in setting up the LLC? Wyoming, born and raised? Absolutely. We would love to work with you in that capacity. Just reach out to digitalfamilyoffice.io and our team there can help you get going. Or you can just go to the website at digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF50 OFFDAGLLC. That's 50 OFFDAGLLC. Get you everything end to end there for your LLC in Wyoming. And then number 2, she says, regardless of investment, can we still be in the mastermind with the code? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody and everybody's welcome to the mastermind right now. I will say this, we are going to lock the mastermind down on the other side of price appreciation. We just have too many good people with a lot of assets in there, and we don't want them to become targets. So on the other side of price appreciation, we are going to lock down the mastermind for 30 days. We are going to raise the minimum cost to participate substantially. And we're going to be doing extensive background checks on anybody else that wants to join the mastermind after a $10 XRP. So if you want to go ahead and lock yourself in and make sure that you're good to go, you're just going to go to beyondbroke.com. That's beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month for $2 there in the group. If you don't like it, you can cancel it anytime. It's month to month. It is through Discord. Discord is a little, it's not the easiest thing to learn in the world, but if you can navigate it, all of our moderators there do a fantastic job of helping people and providing a ton of information. This person asked, what is Mastermind? Mastermind is a group of collective people that come together to help one another achieve great things. If you haven't ever read Think and Grow Rich, I would highly recommend you read that book. It talks about the power of a mastermind in that book. You want to get around people that are a little bit further ahead of you or very successful. You are the amalgamation of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're able to get access to people that are a little bit ahead of you and mentors that are way ahead of you and you aspire to be like, that's where you want to be. And a mastermind is often that arena. Every mastermind I have ever participated in has been fantastic. I've always met awesome people in them. However, I have never been part of a mastermind that's as cheap as ours. Okay. I think we provide more value in our mastermind than almost any other mastermind that I've ever participated in. And I do that on purpose because I want the average Joe to have access to this type of stuff. It shouldn't just be for people that can spend $5,000, $10,000, $30,000 a year on a membership. Obviously, that's a qualifier, and it does help attract the right people. But the culture that we have in the mastermind is, again, we want to help each other. We want to lift each other up. We want to learn about financial education and business resources. And we want to make sure that everybody's situated on the other side of price appreciation for their best life. So if that sounds like a cool community to you, we would love to have you. Again, it's just beyondbroke.com, and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month there for $2. Anybody and everybody can join the mastermind. So with that, we'll wrap it up. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. We will see you guys next Monday on the live. Excited for that one. If you join the mastermind, we'll see you on Saturday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for the town hall. And again, we are running that special for digital wealth partners. You need at least 100,000 XRP or at least $500,000 in portfolio value to work with digital wealth partners. But if you have at least 300,000 XRP or $900,000 in digital assets, you're going to get the reduced AUM fees of 75 basis points, which is less than half of what we normally charge. So would love to have that conversation with anybody that wants to know what's going on over there. You just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and go to the contact us form and fill it out, and our advisors will reach out to you. And even if you don't have that much of these digital assets, I want to mention this: you can get financial advice. We give consults if you want to book with one of our advisors so that they can tell you which digital assets to buy, what to do with them, how to move them around, best way to protect stuff. You just go to digitalwealthpartners.net and schedule a consult there. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. We'll see you guys on the next one.